What if the voice that says not good enough is not telling the truth, but trying to keep person safe? Perfectionism can look like high standards, strong work, and careful choices, and people may even praise it. Underneath, it can feel like a tight chest, a busy mind, and a fear of being found out. This story follows how that fear turns goals into a moving target, how mistakes start to feel dangerous, and why rest can feel undeserved. Staying to the end matters because the never enough feeling can start to make sense, not as a flaw, but as a pattern that was learned for a reason. When the pattern becomes clear, the trap can loosen, and a person can begin to breathe in a different way, even if life still looks the same on the outside. Mara wakes up before the alarm. The first thought is not about breakfast. It is about what was missed. An email that might sound wrong. A meeting where one sentence could have been better. A list that never feels finished. On the outside, Mara looks solid. Deadlines get met. Details get caught. People trust the work. Inside, the day feels like walking on thin glass. One crack, and everything could fall through. That fear is the start of the perfection trap. It is not a love of excellence. It is a fear of being seen as less. Psychologists often separate healthy striving from perfectionism. Healthy striving aims for growth and meaning. It leaves room for learning. Perfectionism aims for safety. It tries to avoid shame, blame, or rejection. The goal is not to do well. The goal is to never do wrong. That is why perfectionism does not settle after a win. Praise can feel nice for a moment. Then the mind asks, what is next? If the bar is high, it gets raised. If the bar is reached, it moves again. The feeling of good enough does not land because safety is never fully proven. Many people learn this pattern early. Some grew up with love that felt tied to performance. A good grade brought warmth. A mistake brought lectures or cold distance. Others grew up around chaos. In an unpredictable home, being perfect can feel like a way to reduce harm. Some were praised for being the responsible one, and the role became a mask that could not slip. Over time, the mind builds hidden rules. Never disappoint. Never need help. Never be ordinary. These rules may not be spoken, but they shape choices. Mara says yes to extra tasks. Mara fixes tiny errors that nobody else would notice. Mara rewrites a message again and again, then feels ashamed for caring so much, then rewrites it again. This is not vanity. It is a threat response. The brain is built to spot danger fast. For some people, mistakes start to feel like danger. A small error can wake the same alarm system that would respond to a real threat. The body tightens. The mind scans for what could go wrong. In that moment, perfectionism feels like a shield. The inner critic often becomes the voice of that shield. It sounds harsh on purpose. It says, do more. Do not mess this up. The critic usually believes it is helping. If Mara stays tense, maybe Mara will stay sharp. If Mara stays afraid, maybe Mara will stay safe. The critic does not know that fear can shrink creativity and steal sleep. It only knows that fear gets results. Then the trap gets rewarded. People call Mara so disciplined. They ask for more. The praise feels good, but it also tightens the mask. If being valued depends on being perfect, then resting feels risky. Saying no feels risky. Even joy can feel risky because joy relaxes the guard. In this state, time starts to bend. A simple task can take hours. Mara edits a slide deck late at night. The work improves, but the process turns punishing. The mind searches for one weak spot. That is all or nothing thinking. In that style of thinking, one flaw becomes a full failure. Perfectionism also loves certainty. It wants the future to be predictable. It wants other people to respond in a certain way. But life does not offer that kind of control. A strong project can still be criticized. A kind message can still be misunderstood. When certainty is not possible, the mind grabs for control in smaller places. It checks and rechecks. It delays sending anything until it feels ready, even when ready never arrives. This is where perfectionism and procrastination link up. Waiting can feel safer than being seen. Social comparison adds fuel. It is easy to see other people's finished work and forget the messy middle. A feed shows polished photos and clean results. Mara scrolls and feels a drop in the stomach. The mind turns comparison into a verdict. Someone else looks better, so Mara must be behind. And if Mara is behind, then Mara is not enough. Under all of this sits a deeper belief. Worth must be earned. Belonging must be proven. In that belief, everything becomes a test. The mind keeps trying to pass by working harder, checking more, and aiming higher. Breaking the perfection trap starts with seeing what perfectionism is trying to do. It is trying to prevent pain. It is trying to avoid shame. It is trying to earn belonging. Once that is seen, a person can keep the need for safety while changing the method. Mara begins with small experiments, not big promises. One day, an email gets written once and sent after a short pause. The body predicts disaster. Then nothing happens. Another day, a report is finished with one sentence left a little rough. The critic complains, but the complaint becomes a sound, not a command. A second shift happens when standards get separated from identity. A standard can be high. A person does not have to be on trial. The work can be edited. The self does not need to be attacked. The brain needs repeated proof of that difference. Mara also starts to notice the cost. Extra polish steals sleep. Extra control steals time with friends. Extra checking steals trust and memory. When the cost becomes clear, the mind has a reason to choose differently. Slowly, the question changes. Instead of, is it perfect, the question becomes, is it true to the purpose? Instead of, will everyone approve, the question becomes, is this aligned with what matters? Fear does not vanish, it just stops running the whole show. And still, the never-enough feeling tries to return. It shows up after praise. It shows up in quiet rooms. That is when the final piece starts to form, the piece that can flip the pattern in a calm but lasting way. One afternoon, a small mistake slips through. A number in a report is off. It gets noticed in a meeting. The room pauses. Mara feels the old heat rise fast. The mind rushes to the usual story. This is it, the moment everything collapses. But something different happens. Nobody laughs, nobody storms out. A colleague points to the line, and the group fixes it. The meeting moves on. Later, Mara waits for the shame to fade. But the shame is not the only thing present. There is also a strange detail. The body is still here. The relationships are still here. The world did not demand perfection to keep going. That is the crack where the trap starts to break. The never good enough voice is not proof of failure. It is a safety alarm built from old lessons. It rings loudest when the stakes feel social, when approval feels like survival. Perfectionism is the mind's attempt to buy belonging with flawless performance. But belonging is not something that can be purchased with error-free work. It is something that grows in truth, in repair, and in being seen while still unfinished. When Mara sees that, the critic does not vanish. It softens. It sounds less like a judge and more like fear asking for reassurance. After that day, life does not turn gentle all at once. The old habits still show up. Mara still feels the pull to overcheck, to overexplain, to stay late. The difference is that the pull gets noticed sooner. It is easier to name it as fear, not truth. Some evenings, Mara closes a laptop with one task still undone. The room is a bit too quiet. The mind wants to reopen the screen and chase the last loose thread. Instead, Mara sits with the discomfort and watches it move through the body like weather. It rises, it peaks, it passes. There is no final moment where a person is declared enough forever. There are only choices made in small, ordinary minutes. A draft sent while still imperfect. A rest taken without earning it. A mistake met with repair instead of self-hate. The voice that once sounded like a verdict can start to sound like a question, and sometimes it even sounds like a child asking if it is safe to stop. And in that softer space, the bar does not disappear, but it stops chasing, and something quieter begins to matter. Something that cannot be measured, something that simply sits beside the work and waits, like a door left slightly open, like breath returning, like the sense that being human might be allowed